You begin by noticing your own breathing, slow and unhurried, rising and falling in the dark. The room around you feels still, as though the world has paused to listen. Outside, the night stretches overhead, deep and scattered with stars. At first glance, everything appears calm, fixed, settled into place. The stars seem like quiet lanterns pinned to a vast ceiling, unchanged and unmoving. Yet beneath this peaceful appearance, something subtle is always happening. As you rest your attention on the sky, you imagine distance itself gently expanding. Not with force or sound, not like an explosion or a rush, but like a careful widening. Space is not carrying galaxies away from one another through motion. Instead, the space between them is slowly growing, as if the universe is taking a long, patient breath. This idea feels strange at first, but also soothing. Expansion is not chaos. It is quiet continuity. You picture raisins resting in a loaf of rising dough. The raisins do not crawl away from one another, yet the distances between them increase as the dough swells. In this way, galaxies remain mostly at rest within their local neighborhoods, while the fabric holding everything stretches softly. The universe expands the way sleep arrives, gradually, evenly, without asking permission. For most of human history, the night sky appeared timeless. Constellations held their shapes, seasons returned on schedule, and the heavens felt dependable. It is comforting to believe that the largest things are also the most stable. But science gently reveals that even the grandest structures participate in change. The universe is not a static backdrop. It is an unfolding process. You feel this idea settle not as a disturbance, but as reassurance. Growth does not always mean upheaval. Sometimes it is simply continuation. The universe does not strain to expand. It does not hurry. There is no edge rushing outward, no center pushing from within. Expansion happens everywhere at once, quietly, equally, like warmth spreading through water. As you lie here, you realize that stillness and motion are not opposites. The night sky can look calm while space itself stretches invisibly. In the same way, your body rests while countless processes continue inside you: blood flowing, cells repairing, breath cycling gently through your lungs. Motion does not need noise. Change does not require urgency. Long ago, when scientists first discovered that the universe was expanding, it felt like a profound shift in perspective. The cosmos was not eternal and unchanging. It had a history. It was once smaller, denser, hotter. Everything you see tonight was closer together in the distant past, woven tightly into a compact beginning. Over time, space itself has been relaxing its grip. You imagine rewinding the universe like a slow film. Galaxies drift closer, light shortens its journey, space tightens gently, until everything meets in a shared origin. Then you let the film play forward again, watching the universe stretch into complexity and calm vastness. Expansion is not destruction. It is possibility opening. The idea of expansion invites you to think differently about emptiness. Space is not a hollow stage where matter performs. It is an active participant, capable of changing, growing, responding. Distance is not merely measured, it is created. The universe is not moving through space. Space itself is doing the moving. This realization does not need to feel overwhelming. Tonight, it feels intimate. You are part of this expansion, carried along effortlessly. Every atom in your body exists within this widening cosmos, gently drifting apart from distant galaxies while remaining close to what matters nearby. Expansion respects closeness. Gravity keeps families of stars, planets, and people together, even as the universe grows around them. The night sky becomes less like a ceiling and more like a deep ocean. Stars float, not fixed, but suspended in a medium that slowly stretches. You are floating too, held securely by Earth, which itself travels quietly through this expanding sea. There is no sense of falling, only belonging. As your thoughts slow, you notice how the universe does not resist its own change. There is no struggle between stillness and motion. Expansion simply is. It does not ask why. It does not announce itself. It continues, patiently, whether observed or not. You rest with the idea that the universe grows the way calm thoughts do, gently unfolding, making room rather than taking space. The night holds this process without effort, and you feel invited to do the same. There is nothing you need to understand fully tonight. Awareness is enough. As your breathing deepens, a quiet curiosity remains. If space is stretching, if the universe continues to widen without slowing, what is guiding this motion? What unseen influence asks the cosmos to keep opening, even when gravity tries to hold it close? You let your mind drift backward, not quickly, but gently, as though time itself is willing to move more slowly for you. Long before the universe felt mysterious in this particular way, scientists believed they understood its future. The cosmos, they thought, was expanding now, but not forever. Gravity would eventually speak louder. Like a tired breath after a long walk, expansion would slow, pause, and perhaps reverse. Gravity feels familiar. You know it as weight, as grounding, as the quiet certainty that keeps your body resting against the earth. It gathers things. It pulls scattered pieces back together. It makes planets round, stars burn, and galaxies hold their shape. It feels natural to assume that gravity, given enough time, would gently gather the universe itself. You imagine the early universe expanding outward, full of energy and motion, then gradually easing as gravity tugs at everything equally. In this picture, the cosmos behaves like a ball tossed upward, rising at first, then slowing, then drifting back down. This expectation feels reasonable, almost comforting. A universe that eventually rests seems easier to hold in the mind. For decades, this was the prevailing thought. The universe expands, yes, but gravity keeps the books balanced. Matter pulls on matter. The more stuff there is, the stronger the pull. The future depended on how much material the universe contained. Enough matter, and everything would one day fall back together. Less matter, and expansion would continue forever, but always slowing, always tiring. You sense how calm this idea feels. Expansion is something that fades. Motion that eventually softens. A universe that knows when to rest. But the cosmos, it turns out, does not follow expectations simply because they feel right. As instruments become more precise and observations more patient, scientists begin to notice something quietly unsettling. The universe is not slowing down. The expansion is not easing its pace. Instead, over immense stretches of time, it is very gently speeding up. Not dramatically. Not suddenly. just enough to matter. This discovery does not arrive with alarms. It comes as a soft inconsistency, a number that refuses to settle where it should. At first, it seems like an error, a miscalculation, a misunderstanding, a subtle flaw in measurement. The universe, after all, has behaved predictably before. Surely gravity has not lost its influence. You feel the patience required here. Years pass. Data accumulates. Observations repeat. And still, the same quiet message returns. Distant galaxies are moving away faster now than they were long ago. Expansion is not fading. It is accelerating. This idea lands gently, like snow settling on thought. There is no explosion of disbelief, only a gradual recognition that something essential is missing from the picture. Gravity alone cannot explain what the universe is doing. You imagine gravity reaching outward, pulling with everything it has, and finding that it is not enough. Not because gravity is weak, but because something else is working alongside it or perhaps against it with a different intention altogether. The universe feels less like a thrown ball now, and more like a long, slow exhale that keeps deepening. Instead of tiring, the breath grows steadier. Instead of slowing, the motion continues with calm confidence. This realization reshapes more than equations. It reshapes intuition. You begin to understand that the universe is not obligated to behave in ways that feel emotionally neat. It does not promise closure. It does not promise return. It simply follows its own rules, even when those rules surprise the ones watching. Yet the surprise itself is gentle. There is no violence and acceleration on cosmic scales. No tearing apart of stars or galaxies nearby. Everything familiar remains stable. Solar systems stay bound. Galaxies hold together. Life continues undisturbed. The acceleration reveals itself only when you look far enough, long enough, with enough patience. You sense how this discovery changes the emotional texture of the cosmos. A universe destined to collapse feels different from one that keeps opening. One leans toward an ending. The other leans toward continuation. As your thoughts soften, you notice that gravity has not failed. It still shapes worlds, anchors light, and gives form to matter. But it is no longer the only storyteller. Another influence is present, subtle yet persistent, guiding the universe toward a future that does not fold back on itself. This new understanding does not rush toward explanation. It pauses instead, holding the question open. What could counter gravity without disrupting everything it builds? What could push so evenly, so quietly, that it only becomes visible across billions of years? You rest with the idea that not all forces announce themselves through struggle. Some work by patience alone. As sleep draws closer, the universe feels less like a place winding down and more like one gently, endlessly opening. Gravity still holds you, steady and safe, but beyond it, something else is at work, something calm, unseen, and strong enough to guide the future of everything. You imagine light beginning its journey long before you were here, long before Earth forms its first quiet oceans. Somewhere far beyond your night sky, a star ignites, and light spills outward in every direction. It does not hurry. It simply travels, patient and unwavering, crossing a universe that is already beginning to stretch. As you rest beneath the stars, that ancient light finally reaches you. It slips gently into your eyes, carrying with it an extraordinary history. This light has crossed billions of years, not through empty stillness, but through space that has been slowly expanding the entire time. The journey itself changes the message. Light behaves like a traveler walking across a floor that is gradually lengthening. With every step, the distance ahead grows just a little more. Over time, the traveler stretches too. In the universe, this stretching reveals itself as redshift. The light's waves lengthen, their energy softens, their color drifts gently toward red. You do not need to see this stretching directly to feel its meaning. Redder light means longer travel. Longer travel means greater distance. And greater distance means deeper time. Light becomes a quiet historian, recording how much the universe has grown since the moment it began its journey. Astronomers learn to listen carefully to this language. They do not rush it. They gather light patiently, sometimes for hours, sometimes for nights, sometimes across years. Each measurement is like listening to a whisper carried across an enormous room. The message is faint, but it is consistent. You imagine the universe as a vast, slow conversation between past and present. Light speaks for places that no longer exist as they once were. The stars you see may already be gone, their light continuing onward like a memory that refuses to fade. In this way, looking outward is always looking backward. As the universe expands, it leaves its mark on every beam of light. Space stretches, and light stretches with it. This stretching is gentle, uniform, and unavoidable. It does not depend on what the light passes through. It depends only on the growth of space itself. You begin to sense how powerful this realization is. The universe reveals its behavior not through force, but through patience. It allows light to do the talking. And light, in its quiet honesty, tells the same story again and again. The farther away a galaxy is, the faster it appears to be moving away. Not because it is racing, but because space between you and it has had more time to grow. This is how expansion becomes measurable. Not by watching galaxies move like sparks, but by listening to how light changes as it travels. The universe leaves fingerprints on every photon, subtle but unmistakable. As you lie here, breathing slowly, you imagine waves on a calm sea. If the sea itself begins to widen, the waves stretch too. Their crests grow farther apart. They become longer, softer, more spread out. Light behaves the same way, its waves gently lengthened by the expanding cosmos. This stretching carries emotional weight as well as scientific meaning. It reminds you that nothing arrives unchanged by its journey. Time leaves its signature on everything. Distance transforms even the most energetic beginnings into something quieter, calmer, more reflective. You notice how fitting this feels for the universe you are trying to understand. A cosmos that expands gently reveals itself through softened signals, not sharp ones. It does not shout its secrets. It hums them. Over time, scientists learn to read these hums with increasing clarity. They compare light from near galaxies and far galaxies, building a map of expansion across time. The pattern emerges slowly, like an image developing in a darkroom. The universe has not expanded at a constant rate. Something has changed. Light from very distant galaxies tells a slightly different story than light from closer ones. The stretching suggests that long ago, expansion was slower. More recently, it has been speeding up. The universe has shifted its rhythm. This realization does not arrive all at once. It is pieced together from countless observations, each one small and careful. Together, they form a quiet consensus. The universe's expansion has evolved. You feel the gentleness of this discovery. No single moment announces it. There is no cosmic signal that declares acceleration. There is only light, arriving stretched just a little more than expected. And within that extra stretching lies a profound implication. Something is influencing the universe on the largest scales, shaping the way space itself grows. Not locally, not violently, but everywhere, evenly, patiently. As your thoughts slow, you realize how remarkable it is that light can carry such deep truths. Something so intangible becomes the universe's most reliable witness. Light remembers what space has done to it. It remembers expansion. You begin to trust this ancient messenger. It has no agenda. It simply arrives as it is, shaped by the journey it has taken. In listening to light, humanity learns to step beyond intuition and expectation, allowing the universe to speak for itself. The night feels richer now, layered with time and distance. Every star becomes a voice from the past, every faint glow a sentence in an unfinished story. You are not just seeing the universe. You are listening to it breathe across billions of years. As sleep approaches, a quiet realization settles in. If light can reveal that expansion is changing, then the universe is telling you something new. Something gravity alone cannot explain. You imagine yourself sitting quietly in an observatory, the kind that hums softly with patience. The air is cool. The instruments are steady. Nothing dramatic is happening, and that is precisely how discoveries like this are made. Not through sudden flashes of insight, but through long attention, careful comparison, and the willingness to notice when something does not quite fit. Astronomers are watching stars die. Not nearby stars, not the gentle fading kind, but massive stars at the end of their lives, collapsing and exploding in brilliant flashes called supernovae. For a brief moment, these dying stars outshine entire galaxies. Then they fade, leaving behind echoes of light traveling outward through the expanding universe. There is something special about certain supernovae. They explode with nearly the same brightness every time. Like identical lanterns lit across the cosmos, they allow distance to be measured with unusual confidence. If you know how bright a light truly is, and you see how dim it appears, you can tell how far away it must be. These supernovae become cosmic candles. You feel the care in this method. Nothing is rushed. Each observation is checked, cross-checked, repeated. Astronomers look deeper and farther, catching light that has traveled for billions of years. They expect these distant explosions to appear a certain way if the universe is slowing down. But they do not. The supernovae are dimmer than expected. Not dramatically. not enough to alarm. Just enough to make careful minds pause. Dimmer means farther. Farther means the universe has expanded more than predicted during the light's journey. At first, this seems like a problem to be solved, not a revelation to be celebrated. Perhaps the supernovae are different after all. Perhaps dust is obscuring the light. Perhaps the instruments need adjustment. Science is cautious by nature, and you feel that caution deeply here. Years pass. More data arrives. Different teams, working independently, notice the same quiet discrepancy. The supernovae remains stubbornly dim. The universe refuses to behave as expected. Slowly, reluctantly, a new interpretation begins to form. If these stellar explosions are farther away than they should be, then the expansion of the universe must have sped up while their light was traveling. The cosmos has not been easing into rest. It has been quietly accelerating. This realization does not crash into the world. It settles. You imagine the moment when this understanding first becomes unavoidable. There is no cheering. No sudden certainty. Just a deep, shared stillness, as though the universe itself has leaned closer and spoken softly. Something fundamental has changed. Acceleration feels counterintuitive. You expect motion to slow when nothing pushes it. You expect gravity to pull things back together over time. Yet the universe is doing the opposite, and doing it gently enough that it takes decades of listening to notice. You feel the weight of this shift. A universe that accelerates is not just expanding. It is being guided by something new. Something that does not clump or pull or shine. Something that works evenly, everywhere, without leaving obvious fingerprints. This discovery reframes the silence of space. What once felt empty now feels active. What once felt passive now feels purposeful. The universe is not simply coasting. It is being encouraged. The supernovae themselves are long gone by the time their message is understood. Their light has done its work quietly, faithfully, carrying truth across unimaginable distances. In death, they become messengers, revealing not just where they were, but what the universe has been doing ever since. You sense the humility this demands. Gravity, long considered the master architect of the cosmos, is no longer alone. It still builds galaxies and shapes stars, but it does not control the largest story by itself. Another influence shares the stage. This does not diminish gravity. It deepens the narrative. The universe becomes more complex, more layered, more subtle than previously imagined. Forces can coexist without conflict, shaping reality in different ways, at different scales. As you rest with this idea, you notice how calm the discovery feels. There is no violence in the acceleration. Galaxies are not being torn apart. Solar systems remain stable. Life continues, unaware. The change reveals itself only across vast expanses of time and space. Acceleration, in this context, is not speed. It is persistence. It is the steady refusal of expansion to slow down. It is the universe choosing openness over closure, continuation over collapse. You begin to understand why this discovery takes time to be accepted. It asks humanity to loosen its grip on expectation. It invites a universe that does not behave like familiar objects thrown through space, but like something stranger, deeper, more abstract. Space itself is changing, and doing so in a way that resists simple explanation. As night deepens, you imagine the supernova lights still traveling, still stretching, still dimming as space continues to grow. Even now, the universe has not finished revealing what those dying stars began to say. You feel a quiet gratitude for the patience of science, for its willingness to sit with uncertainty until patterns emerge. The discovery of cosmic acceleration is not a triumph of cleverness, but of listening. The silence between the stars feels fuller now. Not empty, but expectant. Something unseen is shaping the future of everything, and its influence is gentle enough to remain hidden until the universe itself becomes the measuring instrument. As your thoughts slow, a single question lingers, heavy but calm. If gravity cannot slow the universe, then what is it that can persuade space itself to keep expanding faster and faster, without ever making a sound? You rest with the question left behind by the stars, letting it float without pressure. When something feels too vast to grasp all at once, the human mind does something tender and practical. It gives the mystery a name. Not to solve it, but to make room for it. A name allows uncertainty to sit quietly instead of pressing for resolution. This is how dark energy enters the story. The name does not arrive with certainty or confidence. It arrives softly, almost reluctantly. Scientists do not claim to know what it is. They are careful with their words. Dark does not mean evil or shadowed. It means unseen. It means not yet illuminated by understanding. And energy is not used in the everyday sense of motion or power, but as a placeholder for something that influences the universe in a measurable way. You feel the humility in this choice. Naming the unknown is not an act of control. It is an act of honesty. By calling this influence dark energy, science admits the limits of its vision. Something is there. Its effects are real. But its nature remains unclear. The name becomes a kind of open hand, holding a mystery without closing around it. You imagine standing at the edge of a darkened room. You know the room exists because you feel its space, its boundaries, its quiet presence. But you cannot yet see what fills it. Giving the room a name does not light it up, but it allows you to acknowledge it without fear. Dark energy works the same way. It is not a substance that can be scooped or bottled. It does not clump like matter or shine like stars. It does not gather into galaxies or swirl into planets. Instead, it reveals itself only through what it does to space itself. It makes expansion accelerate. It pushes without pushing, acts without force in the familiar sense. You notice how strange this feels. Almost everything you know about the universe involves things pulling on one another. Gravity draws matter together. Electromagnetism binds atoms. Even light, though weightless, interacts through exchange. Dark energy does none of this. It does not pull. It does not cling. It does not concentrate. It simply exists, evenly, everywhere. The name allows scientists to speak about it without pretending to understand it. Equations can include it. Models can account for it. Conversations can hold it gently, without demanding answers it cannot yet give. You feel how different this is from ignorance. Ignorance is absence. This is presence without clarity. Dark energy is known by its influence, by its consistency, by the way it shapes the future of the universe without revealing its face. There is something deeply calming in this approach. Instead of forcing meaning, science waits. It listens. It builds frameworks that can hold uncertainty safely. The name becomes a resting place, not a conclusion. You reflect on how often humans rush to label things in order to shrink them. But here, the label does the opposite. It preserves the mystery. It acknowledges that the universe is under no obligation to explain itself quickly. Dark energy does not demand belief. It earns attention through evidence, through patience, through repetition. Every observation of accelerating expansion quietly reinforces its presence. The name grows steadier with time, not because it explains more, but because it continues to describe something consistently real. You imagine the universe responding kindly to this restraint. It continues its work, unaffected by what it is called. Space stretches. Galaxies drift. Light softens. Dark energy does not react to curiosity. It does not hide or reveal itself based on attention. It simply is. As your thoughts slow, you notice how naming the unknown changes the emotional tone of the mystery. What once felt unsettling now feels approachable. Not solvable yet, but livable. A mystery that can be carried alongside understanding, rather than standing in opposition to it. You sense that this is how progress often begins. Not with answers, but with careful language. With names that leave room for revision. With concepts that can evolve as listening deepens. Dark energy is not the final word. It is a pause. A breath. A place where knowledge stops pushing and begins waiting. As night deepens around you, the universe feels no less vast, but it feels less demanding. You are not required to understand everything to belong within it. Even the cosmos itself carries mysteries it has not explained, forces it expresses without explanation. You rest with the idea that not knowing is not a failure. It is a state. One that invites curiosity rather than fear. And somewhere within that gentle uncertainty, the universe continues to expand, guided by something now named, but still deeply unknown. You rest with the idea of emptiness, letting it soften in your mind. Empty usually feels simple, like a lack or a void. An empty room. An empty cup. Nothing there. But the universe invites you to reconsider what empty truly means. In the vast stretches between galaxies, where matter thins almost to nothing, something subtle still remains. Space is never completely bare. You imagine drifting far from stars, far from dust, far from light itself. The darkness deepens, and silence stretches in every direction. Yet even here, in what feels like perfect nothingness, the universe is not inactive. Space has properties. It can stretch. It can curve. and perhaps it can exert a quiet pressure. This idea feels counterintuitive at first. Pressure usually comes from things pressing against one another. Air molecules collide, creating force. Water pushes against your skin. How could empty space, with almost nothing in it, push at all? You let the question settle without urgency. Physics suggests that space itself may carry energy simply by existing. Not energy in motion, not energy flowing from one place to another, but a kind of background presence. Like a calm field that fills everything evenly, even where there is no matter to occupy it. You imagine a perfectly still lake at night. No ripples. No wind. Yet the water remains, holding depth and weight. Space may be similar. Calm, uniform, and quietly influential. This is where dark energy begins to feel less abstract and more intimate. If it is connected to space itself, then it does not need to travel or concentrate. It does not need to gather strength. It is already everywhere. Its influence comes not from force, but from persistence. You picture space as a stretched fabric, not pulled tight, but gently under tension. Not enough to tear, not enough to snap back, just enough to keep widening. This tension does not vary from place to place. It does not clump. It does not fade. It presses evenly, calmly, across the entire universe. Pressure, in this sense, does not feel aggressive. It feels patient. In everyday life, pressure often feels uncomfortable. But cosmic pressure is different. It is not localized. It does not crush or compress. Instead, it encourages space to expand, to create more of itself. The more space there is, the more of this pressure exists. And so the expansion feeds gently on itself. You notice how softly this fits the observations. As the universe grows larger and emptier, the influence of this pressure becomes more important. Matter spreads thin. Gravity weakens over great distances. But the pressure of space remains constant everywhere, always. The emptier the universe becomes, the more this quiet influence dominates. You let that idea drift through you. Absence becoming powerful. Emptiness shaping destiny. It feels poetic, but it is also grounded in careful measurement. Equations allow for this possibility. Observations seem to welcome it. The universe behaves as though empty space carries something with it. You think of silence. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It has texture. It has weight. In a quiet room, silence can feel thick, present, almost alive. Space may be similar. Not loud, not visible, but undeniably there. This perspective changes how you feel about the cosmos. The universe is not mostly made of things. It is mostly made of space. And if space itself has energy, then that energy outweighs everything else. Stars, galaxies, planets, and people become delicate patterns floating within a much deeper ocean. You do not feel diminished by this. You feel held. The pressure of empty space does not act suddenly. It does not shove galaxies apart. It nudges them, patiently, across billions of years. No alarms sound. No structures collapse. Everything familiar remains stable. The influence only becomes clear when you step back far enough to see the whole picture. This is the kind of force that works best in silence. You imagine the universe as a vast, slow heartbeat. Expansion is the outward motion. Gravity resists, holding structures together. But the pressure of space gently tips the balance, favoring openness over closure. The heartbeat continues, calm and steady. Some scientists describe this pressure as negative, not because it is harmful, but because it behaves opposite to what intuition expects. Instead of pulling inward, it pushes outward. Instead of binding things together, it encourages separation. But even this separation is gentle. It respects local closeness while shaping distant futures. You notice how well this matches your own experience of rest. When you relax deeply, your body does not collapse. It opens. Muscles release. Breath deepens. Space appears inside you where tension once lived. Letting go becomes expansive. The universe, it seems, may be doing something similar. As your thoughts slow further, you sense how elegant this idea is. No new particles racing through space. No hidden explosions. Just space itself, quietly being what it is, and in doing so, shaping the destiny of everything within it. The pressure of empty space does not announce itself with spectacle. It reveals itself through patience, through consistency, through the long arc of cosmic history. It is noticed only because someone thought to listen carefully enough. You feel gratitude for that listening, for the willingness to consider that nothingness might not be empty after all. As night deepens, the stars feel farther away, not in distance, but in understanding. They shine, they burn, they live and die. But the space between them is where the quiet story unfolds. That space is not passive. It is active in the most restrained way possible. You rest with the idea that emptiness can carry meaning. That absence can have influence. That nothingness, when given enough time, can shape everything. And as sleep approaches, you feel yourself floating gently within this vast, patient pressure, held not by force, but by the calm persistence of space itself. You let your thoughts drift forward in time, not rushing ahead, but gliding gently, as if the future is something soft you can approach without effort. The universe invites this kind of movement. It does not snap or break as time passes. It simply opens, gradually, patiently, making more room for what already exists. You picture the cosmos long ago, when matter was dense and close together. Galaxies were crowded. Gravity's voice was strong and immediate. Everything felt bound, connected, tightly woven into a smaller space. In that early universe, gravity ruled the large-scale story. Matter shaped the future through attraction and gathering. But time has been quietly changing the balance. As the universe expands, matter spreads thinner. Galaxies drift farther apart, not because they are fleeing, but because space itself continues to grow between them. With every passing billion years, gravity's reach becomes more localized. It still holds stars and galaxies and planets around stars, but its influence across vast distances slowly weakens. You imagine islands forming in an ever-widening ocean. Each island remains whole and self-contained, yet the water between them stretches farther and farther. No island is damaged by this separation. they simply become more alone. In this thinning universe, dark energy does not fade. It does not dilute the way matter does. If it is tied to space itself, then as space increases, so does its total influence. The more the universe expands, the more important this quiet force becomes. It does not rush to dominate. It simply waits. You feel the calm inevitability of the shift. The universe is not choosing sides in a struggle. It is following a natural progression. Matter had its era. Gravity-shaped structure, complexity, and closeness. Now, gradually, space itself takes the lead. This does not feel like loss. It feels like transition. You sense how the future of the universe becomes longer, quieter, more open. Galaxies that are close enough remain bound, their stars continuing to form, shine, and fade. But beyond those local neighborhoods, distance grows vast. Light takes longer to cross the gaps. Some regions slowly slip beyond one another's reach. The universe begins to favor separation, not suddenly, not harshly, but steadily. Expansion becomes not just something that happens, but something that defines what comes next. The future stretches out like a long road with no sharp turns. You reflect on how different this is from earlier expectations. Once, the universe was thought to be undecided, balanced delicately between collapse and endless expansion. Now it appears more committed. The scales tip gently but firmly toward openness. This leaning forward does not feel dramatic. There is no final moment when gravity gives up. There is no instant when everything changes. The shift is so slow that it can only be seen by comparing the distant past with the far future. You feel comfort in this slowness. Nothing is being taken away abruptly. Nothing familiar is threatened. The universe allows everything to complete its natural story before moving on. Stars will continue to be born and die for billions of years. Galaxies will continue their quiet dances. Life, where it arises, will still experience closeness, warmth, gravity, and light. Dark energy shapes the farthest scales, not the intimate ones. You notice how kind this feels. A universe that favors the future does not erase the present. It carries it forward, gently, without urgency. Expansion does not tear apart what is already bound. It simply creates more space where nothing needs to be held together. You imagine time itself participating in this motion. The future feels open, unpressured, unconcerned with returning to the past. The universe does not circle back on itself. It moves forward, calmly, allowing each moment to unfold once and then rest. There is something deeply peaceful in a cosmos without a looming collapse. No final tightening. No inevitable crash. Just a gradual thinning, a stretching, a quiet drift into greater simplicity. You sense that this future is not empty of meaning. It is spacious. Meaning does not require closeness. It can exist within vast distances, within long durations, within gentle continuation. As you breathe, you feel aligned with this cosmic direction. Your own future, too, does not need to rush or resolve. Like the universe, you can lean forward without anxiety, allowing time to open rather than close. The galaxies continue their slow retreat from one another, not as enemies, but as companions drifting apart after a long shared journey. Each carries its own history, its own light, its own internal gravity. The universe becomes quieter on the largest scales, but not colder in spirit. It trades density for duration, closeness for calm. It becomes a place where nothing presses for an ending. You rest with the idea that expansion is not a flaw or a problem to be solved. It is a direction, a tendency, a gentle preference written into the fabric of space itself. As night deepens, you feel that same preference in yourself. A leaning toward rest, toward openness, toward letting go of what no longer needs to be held tightly. The universe does not hurry toward the future. It welcomes it. And as sleep approaches, you feel carried along by that same quiet motion, moving not toward an edge or a conclusion, but into a wide, patient tomorrow shaped by the calm persistence of space. You allow your thoughts to drift backward again, not to the beginning of the universe this time, but to the beginning of an idea. Long before dark energy has a name, long before cosmic acceleration is observed, a physicist sits with equations and unease. The universe, as his mathematics describes it, refuses to stay still. Albert Einstein expects the universe to be eternal and unchanging. It feels natural to him, as it does to many. A cosmos that simply exists, balanced and steady, without a beginning or an end. But his equations of gravity suggest something else. Space itself seems restless, inclined to expand or collapse. This unsettles him. So he introduces a small adjustment, a gentle addition to the mathematics. Not a force, not a substance, but a constant, a term that allows space to remain perfectly balanced. This addition counteracts gravity just enough to hold the universe still. He calls it the cosmological constant. At first, it feels like a quiet solution. The universe settles. The equations behave. Space neither expands nor contracts. Everything rests. But the universe, it turns out, does not rest. When expansion is discovered years later, Einstein reportedly regrets adding the constant. He removes it. The universe, now known to be expanding, no longer needs to be held still. The cosmological constant becomes an embarrassment, a reminder of a preference for stability that reality does not share. And yet, the idea does not disappear. You feel the softness of its return. Decades later, when acceleration is discovered, scientists search for explanations that do not disturb the delicate structure of physics. They find themselves looking again at that old, quiet term. The cosmological constant waits patiently, unchanged by fashion or dismissal. It does not explain why space expands. It explains why expansion might accelerate. The constant suggests that empty space carries an energy that does not dilute as the universe grows. No matter how much space there is, this energy remains the same per unit of space. As the universe expands, the total amount of this energy increases, not by gathering, but simply by existing within more space. You notice how understated this idea is. There is no drama, no evolution, no decay, just persistence. The cosmological constant does not change over time. It does not react to matter or radiation. It does not clump or flow. It simply sits within the fabric of space, quietly influencing how space behaves. Like a whisper that never raises its voice. You imagine space as a calm ocean with a gentle, steady swell. The swell does not depend on storms or winds. It is built into the ocean itself. No matter where you float, the motion is the same. Subtle, constant, reliable. This constancy feels strangely comforting. In a universe defined by change, stars igniting and fading, galaxies colliding and drifting apart, here is something that does not evolve. It simply is. You sense why this idea feels so appealing to scientists. It explains acceleration without introducing new, exotic behavior. It fits neatly into existing equations. It does not demand extra dimensions or unseen particles racing through space. It asks only that space itself has an inherent property. The universe, in this view, has always known how to expand this way. Acceleration is not a sudden event. It is the gradual revealing of something that has been present all along. You let this idea settle slowly. If the cosmological constant is real, then dark energy is not something that appeared later in cosmic history. It was there from the beginning, subtle and overshadowed by gravity when matter was dense and close together. Only as the universe grew did its influence become noticeable. Like a soft sound becoming audible as the room grows quieter. This perspective reshapes the story of the cosmos. Instead of a universe that changes its rules, you see one that reveals them in stages. Gravity dominates early, shaping structure and complexity. Later, as matter spreads thin, the quiet constant steps forward. You feel the elegance of this unfolding. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is abrupt. Each influence has its time. Still, the cosmological constant carries a puzzle. Its value appears incredibly small, yet its effects are enormous across vast distances and long times. Why this value and not another? Why does it exist at all? The equations do not answer. They only describe. You sense that this is where science meets humility again. The cosmological constant may be mathematically simple, but its origin remains mysterious. It is a number written into the universe without explanation. And yet, that mystery does not feel threatening. It feels gentle. Like a question that does not insist on resolution before rest. You imagine the universe whispering its story rather than declaring it. Not everything needs to be loud to be powerful. Not everything needs to be understood to be real. As you lie here, breathing slowly, you notice how this idea mirrors the night itself. The dark sky does not explain itself. It simply surrounds you, steady and vast. The stars shine, but the space between them holds just as much meaning. The cosmological constant is like that space. Unseen. Unchanging. Always present. You begin to feel that the universe may be simpler than feared, yet deeper than imagined. It may not be driven by dramatic forces clashing and competing, but by a few quiet principles patiently unfolding. The whisper continues whether anyone listens or not. Space expands. Acceleration persists. The future opens. And you, resting within this expanding cosmos, are carried by the same constant influence. Not pulled. Not pushed. Simply included. As sleep draws closer, the idea lingers softly. Perhaps the universe has always known how to grow this way. Perhaps it has always carried this steady presence within its fabric. You find that your questions have changed. They no longer press forward with urgency or demand resolution before rest. Instead, they arrive slowly, settle gently, and remain open without discomfort. The universe seems to encourage this shift, offering mysteries that are meant to be lived with, not solved all at once. Dark energy is one of these questions. What is it made of? Is it truly a thing, or simply a property of space itself? Does it remain constant forever, or could it change in ways too subtle to notice yet? Each question forms naturally, then drifts, leaving space behind rather than tension. You sense how different this feels from earlier chapters of understanding. Once, the mystery of expansion demanded explanation. Why was the universe growing? Why was gravity not enough? Those questions carried urgency, as though the cosmos were misbehaving and needed correction. Now, the tone has softened. The universe is not broken. It is not hiding something out of spite. It is simply complex in a way that unfolds slowly, revealing pieces only when the conditions are right. Dark energy may not be a puzzle with a final picture. It may be a horizon that recedes as understanding deepens. You notice how science adapts to this kind of mystery. Instead of insisting on a single answer, it allows for many possibilities to coexist. Dark energy might be a cosmological constant, steady and unchanging. It might be something dynamic, slowly evolving. It might be a sign that gravity itself behaves differently across vast distances. Each possibility is held gently, tested carefully, without urgency. This patience feels earned. The universe has taught observers that rushing leads to misunderstanding. Precision, repetition, and humility are better guides. Questions that grow softer often grow deeper too. You think about how uncertainty feels when it is no longer feared. It becomes spacious. It allows imagination without fantasy, curiosity without anxiety. Not knowing stops feeling like a lack and begins to feel like an invitation. Dark energy invites this kind of relationship. It does not reveal itself directly. No instrument detects it as a particle or a wave. No experiment isolates it in a laboratory. It remains inferred, known only through its influence on the largest scales imaginable. This distance demands trust and method, not immediacy. You sense how this reshapes the emotional landscape of science. There is less conquest here, less claiming of territory. There is more listening, more watching, more waiting for patterns to repeat themselves across time. You imagine future observers, centuries from now, still asking similar questions. They may know more details, refine measurements, and rule out possibilities, yet the core mystery may remain. Dark energy could stay elusive, not because it is hidden, but because it is fundamental in a way that resists simplification. This thought does not feel discouraging. It feels stabilizing. Some mysteries anchor understanding rather than threaten it. They remind you that knowledge has edges, and that those edges are where wonder lives. A universe fully explained might feel smaller than one that retains depth. You notice how the night sky mirrors this feeling. You do not need to identify every star to feel comforted by their presence. You do not need to trace every galaxy to feel included in the cosmos. Meaning arises from relationship, not completion. Dark energy becomes less of a problem to solve and more of a companion in thought. It shapes the universe quietly, and in doing so, shapes the questions you ask about existence itself. Why does anything persist? Why does the future open rather than close? Why is there room for continuation at all? These questions do not seek final answers. They seek resonance. You feel the rhythm of repetition here. Again and again, observations confirm acceleration. Again and again, explanations circle back to space itself. Each cycle does not narrow the mystery. It clarifies its shape, making it easier to sit with. The universe seems patient with this process. It does not hurry humanity toward understanding. It allows centuries to pass, ideas to evolve, instruments to improve. Dark energy remains steady throughout, unaffected by curiosity or doubt. You find comfort in this steadiness. Whatever dark energy is, it does not change its behavior based on attention. It does not reward discovery with alteration. It simply continues, shaping the cosmos with quiet consistency. As your breathing slows, you realize that this is what makes the mystery peaceful. There is no countdown. No looming revelation required before rest. The universe will continue expanding whether or not the question is answered tonight. You are allowed to sleep without resolution. You sense how this acceptance deepens understanding rather than weakening it. By releasing the need to know everything now, you make space for insight to arrive naturally when it is ready. The questions remain, but they no longer disturb the silence. They blend into it, becoming part of the background hum of existence. Dark energy joins gravity, light, and time as something real, influential, and partially unknowable. You rest within that balance. The universe feels vast but not overwhelming, mysterious but not hostile. It offers truths slowly, generously, without demand. Dark energy becomes one of its quiet lessons. Not everything important announces itself, and not everything meaningful needs a name that explains it fully. As sleep draws closer, you allow the questions to soften even further. They no longer ask for answers. They simply accompany you, like distant stars that remain visible even when your eyes close. You come back to yourself slowly, the way night always invites you to do. Your body rests where it is, supported, still, breathing without effort. Around you, the universe continues its patient expansion, and for the first time, it feels familiar rather than distant. Not something happening elsewhere, but something you are gently inside. You imagine the cosmos not as a spectacle above you, but as an environment that holds you. Space stretches quietly in every direction, carrying galaxies, light, and time along with it. You are not separate from this motion. Every atom in your body participates, drifting with the same calm rhythm that moves the stars apart. Dark energy continues its work without announcement. It does not shimmer or glow. It does not surge or pulse. It simply persists, shaping the largest patterns while leaving the smallest moments untouched. Your breath remains steady. Your heartbeat remains calm. The universe knows how to scale its influence gently. You feel the relief in that. Nothing in your immediate world is being pulled away. The earth still holds you. Gravity still presses softly against your body. The familiar forces remain close and reliable. Dark energy works at distances so vast that they feel almost philosophical rather than physical. It shapes the future without disturbing the present. You rest with this balance. Local closeness within global openness. Stability within expansion. The universe does not ask you to choose between feeling grounded and feeling vast. It allows both to exist together. As you breathe, you imagine the space between galaxies growing just a little wider. Not perceptibly. Not urgently. Just enough to matter over billions of years. This slow pace feels kind. It allows everything time to finish being what it is. Stars will burn through their lives. Planets will orbit faithfully. Civilizations may rise, wonder, and fade. Dark energy does not interrupt these stories. It simply ensures that the stage itself continues to widen, making room for time to unfold without pressure. You sense how different this feels from an ending. There is no approaching collapse, no final tightening of space. The universe is not winding down toward a singular conclusion. It is opening into duration, into patience, into long futures that stretch gently beyond imagination. This realization brings a quiet comfort. A universe that expands calmly is not anxious about its own existence. It does not rush toward resolution. It allows moments to be moments, and endings to arrive naturally, not catastrophically. You feel invited to mirror this attitude. Your own thoughts begin to expand and then soften. Worries loosen their grip. Questions drift without demanding answers. Like galaxies, they move farther apart, leaving more space between them. The mind becomes quieter not because thoughts disappear, but because there is room for them to exist without crowding. You imagine the universe as a deep breath that never quite finishes exhaling. Always open. Always allowing. Never forcing the air out all at once. Expansion becomes an act of trust rather than effort. Dark energy, in this sense, is not something to fear or fight. It is not an intruder in the cosmic story. It is part of the universe's temperament, its tendency toward openness. It encourages space to be generous, to keep making room even when nothing asks it to. You realize how fitting this is for bedtime. Sleep does not arrive by force. It arrives when the mind creates enough space for it. Muscles relax. Thoughts slow. Awareness widens, then dims. Nothing is pushed away. Everything is allowed to settle. The universe seems to understand this rhythm well. As you lie here, you feel yourself floating within layers of motion you do not need to manage. The Earth turns. The planet orbits. The galaxy drifts. Space itself expands. None of this requires your attention or effort. It happens whether you watch it or not. There is peace in that lack of responsibility. You are not asked to hold the universe together. You are not asked to understand it completely. You are simply asked to exist within it for a while, to experience a brief moment of awareness inside a much longer story. The stars above you continue their silent shining. Some are close, some impossibly far. Their light travels patiently, stretched by expansion, softened by distance. Even now, ancient photons are arriving, carrying messages you do not need to decode tonight. The universe does not require constant interpretation. Sometimes it is enough to feel its presence, its scale, its steadiness. You notice how the idea of dark energy has changed. It no longer feels like an abstract force or a scientific problem. It feels like a background condition, a gentle rule that allows the universe to remain spacious. It ensures that nothing closes in too tightly, that time has room to move forward. This does not make existence easier or harder. It simply makes it possible in a particular way. You breathe again, deeper now, slower. With each breath, your awareness widens slightly, then rests. Expansion followed by stillness. The same rhythm appears everywhere, from lungs to galaxies. The night feels less empty now. It feels full of quiet processes, all unfolding without urgency. The universe does not rush you toward morning. It allows darkness to be dark, rest to be rest. You feel small, but not insignificant. Your size does not diminish your belonging. A single thought can exist inside a vast cosmos without contradiction. Meaning does not depend on scale. It depends on presence. As sleep approaches, the boundaries between you and the universe soften. Not because you disappear, but because you stop needing separation. You are a moment of awareness inside an expanding whole, and that is enough. The universe continues its gentle widening whether you are awake or asleep. Dark energy does not pause. Space keeps stretching. Time keeps flowing forward with calm persistence. And you are free to rest.